Welcome everyone. This is the Q&A for Breaking Fast, and we have here a large team of people who have worked on the film, so I'll allow you guys to introduce yourselves, and then we can go from there.
I'm Mike Mosallam, the writer-director of the film.
I'm Alex. I'm one of the producers of the film.
I'm Seth. I'm also one of the producers.
I'm Tinica. I'm the casting director.
I'm Amin. I played Sam.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to dive right in unless you would like to say anything up front. Please go ahead. All right. So, Breaking Fast. Wow, I love this film. Honestly, being Lebanese myself, I'm sure you know, it's very rare to see yourself on screen. So, I did want to ask if there were any unique challenges associated to making your film and the themes in your film.
I'm struggling to think of a challenge that we faced in making it, and that is actually a testament to the producing team that we had on this film. They were a superstar team, Seth and Alex, who are here with us, joined by Sarah Bazzi and Bay Darris, who were also producers on the project, and then Davin Michaels when we went into post. And they were so astute and smart about how to make this super low budget, Muslim-centric rom-com feel like a big studio Julia Roberts romantic comedy.
Cool. And so you said that you didn't have that many challenges. How to what extent was the film autobiographical in nature? It felt like a lot of the scenes were very real, scenes I had personally experienced myself. So
thank you for saying that. I think for me, it's not necessarily autobiographical in that it's my story, but I think over the years of living comfortably within the intersectionality of my sexuality and my faith, and also meeting people along the way and being friends and family with those people, the story feels real because it's real. It's, you know, we can relate to the journey of a lot of these characters. And I think for myself, it's not autobiographical in one lane, but a lot of the things that happen to a lot of the characters happen to me or people that I know.
Yeah, that really came through. I saw that.
Thank you.
Also, I saw that there were a lot of scenes that were in Arabic, or quite a few sprinkled around. And I wondered why you decided to write certain scenes in certain languages, and also why some of them were translated and others weren't, if you could comment on that as well.
Well, it's very natural for me to go in and out of Arabic or Arabish as we, you know, as we do it. If I'm on the phone with my family or friends, or with Alex or Sarah or Amin, you know, it's very easy for that to just organically happen. If a word doesn't come to me in English, it'll come to me in Arabic, or it's better described in Arabic. And I wanted that sort of natural flow of the bilingualness to sort of come through. And in terms of translation, I think that we wanted to translate stuff that was important to understand, and then we didn't want to we didn't want to sort of overdo translations with stuff that you can infer based on what's going on.
I noticed that.
Amin, I wonder if you want to speak about the Arabic and you know, your experience.
Well, I'm Egyptian American, so my parents are from Egypt. And even though Egyptian Arabic, which is a very different dialect from Lebanese, as I'm sure you know, Even though that was my first language and I have a conversational ability, I'm pretty rusty. So I had to work really hard. I worked with Sarah, one of the producers, to try to hone in on the little bits of Arabic, of Lebanese Arabic that I had to speak. And that was one of the hardest things for me. And that was a real challenge because the scene where I speak the most Arabic is probably the most emotionally intense as well. So trying to like make sure the sounds were correct while also trying to be authentic and truthful was a challenge, was a real challenge. But Mike was very patient with me and very nurturing. So I'm really proud of it.
Oh, that's sweet.
Also, I want to say that specifically in that pivotal scene towards the end of the film where you are sort of very frustrated and vulnerable with Mo, your frustration with yourself and the language was a perfect thing to use to get yourself to the place that was necessary. And I think it comes across so beautifully on screen.
It did, yeah. I was petrified and angry and frustrated, and I think it was also the middle of the night.
And that's what you needed to be.
It was certainly our last moments of shooting, and you were great.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you did a great job. It came across.
Thank you.
That frustration really did, so, in a good way. All right, so I want to get a little deeper into the characters here, and so I know Mike, you both wrote and directed this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have a sort of your characters are very deep, very robust, and your film covers assumed. But I did want to ask to what extent the characters around Mo exist as juxtapositions of, let's say, privilege or other things that you covered but really aren't really spoken.
I think I don't know if it was just me, but a lot of what you said got cut out. But I think I heard the end of that question. So if my answer doesn't answer your question, just tell me to answer your question, and then I'll do it right. But it was very important for me, and I also have to credit my producing partner Seth, who was instrumental in making the story is what it is, and we worked hand in hand and very closely on the characters and the story that you saw. It was really important for me to not just show one Arab, Muslim, queer experience, because I think the minute you put those things together and that intersectionality comes together, it's incredibly rare to have Mo's experience. It exists. Mo's experience exists for sure, and it's probably the closest to my own experience, and in a lot of ways, and in other ways it's not. But I also think it was very important to also highlight those in the community who feel like they have to choose between their faith and their sexuality, some of whom choose their faith or what it is more realistically, their culture, and that's like Hassan, Mo's ex-boyfriend, and then there are those who just choose themselves and say, fine, if everybody tells me that the faith doesn't want me, then I'll just be me, and that's whatever. And that's sort of Sam, and there was a trifecta of experiences there that we really wanted to hone in on and show, because it never escapes us how privileged Mo's experience is.
Yeah, to be honest, watching that, I was very taken aback. I was not expecting that at all, which it says something, obviously, because it is not a very common experience.
Yeah, I think that's kind of in a lot of ways too why we made the film, was because I think when you're accustomed to seeing things regarding Islam and things regarding sexuality, you're often seeing those things sort of fighting each other, or people living in shame or living in fear or running from something. And there is a cross section of those of people who are able to love who they love and love God, and no external factor is going to stand in their way, because their faith to their Lord and to themselves is stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind if I piggyback on something he said? Is that okay for me to pipe in? I just wanted to say that when I was first sent the script, Bay brought me into the project because I had worked with Bay previously on something else. And Bay had sent me the script. I read it, and there was so much about it that I loved. But one of the things that really hooked me is something that Mike just talked about, the different, being able to show different experiences of this intersectionality, because that's what I loved so much. And specifically when it gets to the dining room scene and the argument that culminates between Sam and Mo, that I just loved so much, that under the guise of a romantic comedy, there's a very serious conversation that's happening.
Yeah.
And very serious, that's happening here about that exact intersectionality and the different points of view on it. And that for me was something I felt like I had never seen in anything before, let alone some of these characters. I had never seen these characters portrayed in anything before, but I'd never read anything, or I'd never seen anything that specific dialogue, that conversation, that very serious and complex and multi-layered conversation about that intersectionality. I'd never seen that anywhere. And that was one of the things that I was like, I'm in. I'm totally in. If they'll have me, I'm in.
And we gladly had you.
Oh, is everyone breaking up, or do you hear me fine?
I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Well, great. Thank you for that. I did want to ask what, whoever wants to answer this, obviously, what was going through your mind with the character of Cal? How were you trying to tread with that character specifically?
In what way?
In the way of this is a person who grew up in Jordan, who comes from a military family, who speaks some Arabic, who is teaching our Lebanese character how to make tabbouleh. What do you, what are your thoughts on how he comes off at first?
I wrote a real fantasy. Like I wrote a real kind of like, let's put down on paper all of the wish list of things that we would hope to find in a partner. And let's spend a majority of time never believing that this guy is real, and then only realizing that what's not real is the belief in ourselves. Because it would be very difficult for me and a lot of people that I know to accept that kind of love. And that is really a commentary on, I think, internalized homophobia, shame, the things that we carry that we're not even aware, no matter how elevated or how self-aware we might be, just the things that we carry with us, to sit in a belief that somebody who is seemingly this perfect, not unflawed, but perfect, sort of on a checklist, could just love us. And I think, Seth was really a really big advocate for making sure that we didn't make Cal too perfect, because and really sort of giving him some real challenges of his own that he's working on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the two characters, a lot of their interactions are like optimistic, where they subvert each other's expectations. And only whenever they come to just embrace surprise and the ability to be surprised and let someone surprise you when you might have had a preconceived notion, that's when their relationship becomes successful.
And that's what Mo does. Mo wants to control everything. He wants to dictate and prescribe what every moment of his life should be. And thank God he has people like Sam who, you know, can sort of lovingly and jokingly kick him back to reality. And he has a mother who loves him sort of like almost too much. But what he, you know, to Seth's point, you know, the idea that you can just sort of let go from trying to produce what you want and just sort of embrace what somebody is giving you.
And it might not be what you thought you needed, but it is what you needed.
It's exactly what you needed.
In true rom-com fashion as well.
Yes.
It's very, very funny also. Their interactions with each other made me laugh. I did have a question for Tanika, if that's okay. I wanted to ask if this was an easy film to cast. What was the casting process like for this?
So one of the things that I think many of us in casting are always hoping for is a director who has very clear vision, who can give us real guidance as to what it is he or she wants for their characters, but is also an incredible collaborator and very open to input and new ideas within that vision. And that is exactly who Mike is. And so for that reason, it was a dream to work on this film. And for that reason, it was very smooth sailing because he was very specific and he knew exactly what he wanted, but he was also very open to discussion and to ideas and input. And so that's just, I mean, I hope I can speak for all casting directors. That's what we want. That's how we want to be working. When it comes to the actual roles themselves, I had to educate myself, and I love that they trusted me enough that they could put their faith in me that I would educate myself because of what was important to Mike in this casting. And so I had to do a little research and do a little education so that I could figure out why I was saying yes or no to agents and what exactly I was looking for. But that was, you know, that's fine. That's any job that comes along. Oftentimes there's some aspect to it that we're like, oh, I need to learn a little bit about a new culture, or I need to learn about a new, you know, sub-world, or, you know, certain set of skills or whatever. That's exciting in casting to be able to do that. You know, when you're working on a smaller budgeted film, there's always limitations, but I knew that the script was going to sell itself once I could get people to open it. That's, you know, on smaller budgeted films, that's a lot of the job of the casting director, is getting that script higher up in the pile. So I become a little bit of a salesman in that way, you know, like I have to get the agents to take a look at something that's not on their radar. And then the script has to speak for itself once they do open up that script. And I knew Mike's script would speak for itself. So I felt like it was a pretty easy sell. And so the response that we got actually was really amazing. It also introduced me to all these wonderful Arab actors, many of whom I had maybe seen a little bit, and many of whom I had never seen. And so now I have a whole new talent pool that I can pull from for anything, you know, not just Arab roles, but for anything. So overall, this goes down. I've been doing this now for 16 years, casting specifically, and this goes down as it's definitely up there with one of my absolute favorite casting experiences, both in terms of what I was able to learn and the people that I was able to meet, but also just Mike and the entire producing team. They're just really, I don't want them to use anybody else, but I also hope that that everybody gets a chance at some point in their career to be able to work with people like them, because that really just was, and they're all, you know, in my heart now for the rest of my life. So
Same, easily said same.
If I wasn't heartless, I'd be crying. Thank you, Tim.
All of your tears are getting caught in that stash.
Yeah.
Thank you. Amin, I had a question for you as well. What was it like playing your role? You were very, very funny, I must say. You were great in your role. Did you have any concerns or challenges that you faced playing that role, or did you feel like it was quite a natural experience for you?
Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed it, and thanks for introducing this film to a whole other audience. I had a blast playing Sam. I am gay, I'm Muslim, I am very different from Sam in a lot of ways. I have those two things in common, but my approach to life is a little bit different. My energy is pretty different. I'm pretty low-key, low blood pressure, and quiet. So I think the challenge for me in the role was making sure that I had the comedic rhythm and the lines down and sort of an idea of what I was doing so well that I could kind of just go off the handle and sort of, you know, let Sam just sort of explode. I didn't have a lot of concerns. I felt in a certain way that I knew exactly who Sam was right off the bat. Like we said before, some of the Lebanese dialect, it was harder for it to stick for me. So that was a technical challenge. But I think most of all, I just enjoyed, first of all, as an Arab American actor, I just don't really get the opportunity to be funny very often. A lot of times we're in these like, you know, refugee situations, or like, you know, like a terrorist, you know, screaming in the desert with a machine gun. So I was just really excited to be able to play a character who not only is Arab American and funny and lovable and, you know, also has a lot of wisdom and love to give, but also is gay and has so much joy. You know, he's not this like tragic. I feel a lot of times the intersection of these identities are so tragic, and he's just there's just so much joy. And I initially, because the character was written as an immigrant, the team had it in their mind that I should have an accent. Eventually, that got dropped, and I was really glad it did. Haven't really expressed my opinion on that, but I think it's just really important to see an Arab person. It's very rare that often when I'm asked to work that I don't have an accent for some reason, and and most of the time I feel like it's not necessary, and it's exciting to see. You're like, oh, this is an American person, you know? Yeah. There's sort of, not that there's anything wrong with people with accents, of course, but or that representation, but I feel like that as Arab Americans, we sort of get sidelined and we get funneled into either having nothing to do with our identity, or then having to have an accent and be super different than how we actually manifest in real life. So I think that representation was really important for me. But yeah, most of all, it was just so fun. Sam is so fun, and he's so wise, and the character is written in this way where like he embraces the sort of gay best friend, sort of chaotic, you know, quirky energy of rom-coms that we always love in that sort of archetype. But then he also has a lot more depth than you'd expect, and a lot of wisdom. And it was really fun to kind of own that stereotype and then sort of subvert it.
Yeah, I just want to add that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it was a wonderful performance.
Thank you.
I was just going to say Sam was definitely my favorite character to write. So going into the casting process, I was particularly protective of that character. Also, that character is deeply based on somebody very close to me. And like, if I were to imagine my perfect dream scenario, Amin like exceeded it in like space. Like, it was an incredible moment when he first auditioned, because and a lot of times, and I think Tinika, you probably see this too, like in someone's first read to like what they actually film, there's like huge change, right? But Amin knew exactly who this guy was, like take one, that all we really needed to do was like fluff around it. But he just got it in the best way. And it was, and you were so fun to work with. I can't wait to do it again.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, Mike knew Amin a little bit. I don't know to what extent you knew Amin prior to them bringing me on. And, you know, we were casting and we were seeing people, but Mike was like, I want Amin to come in for this. And I was like, you sure? Because I've seen The Newsroom and I've seen some of these other, sure?
Yeah.
He's like, can he be funny? And Mike was like, he's funny in real life. Like, I think you'll be surprised. I think maybe he can do this. And I was like, whatever you want, Mike. If you want to see somebody, we'll bring somebody in. And Amin walked in. And what color shoes did you have on? I can't remember. Pink, I think.
Oh, I think they were like this like obscenely bright pink that like kind of blinds you. Yeah.
And he walked in the door, and I was like, oh, he gets who Sam is. He totally he knows who this character is, and he was so great right from the minute he didn't even open his mouth yet. He literally walked in, and I was like, okay, this Mike guy, he knows what he's talking about.
Well, only because I know an Amin guy who's hilarious.
Thank you. I don't know how to take compliments. I'm trying.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine.
So I know that last year we screened Brothers, and that one won the Audience Award in the Queer Muslim Shorts program. And I personally voted for it, of course.
Thank you.
But I also wanted to ask you, before Brothers, I know that you're a mentor and you try to help foster Muslim storytelling, Muslim filmmakers. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. This year in particular, my production company, Mike Mosallam Productions, which is the most creative name one could have for their production company.
You workshopped.
What's that?
You workshop the name a lot.
A lot, right? Seth and Alex and Sarah, who's not on this call, unfortunately, and I partnered with MPAC, the Muslim Public Affairs Council, their Hollywood Bureau, on a short film contest where emerging writers submitted screenplays. We received, I think, 70 or so submissions, and the film that was actually selected and produced was a film called Ubuntu, which is playing currently in Wicked Queer.
Yeah.
But I think, especially now, and especially as like people are knowing my name in the space of Arab and Muslim content, I get asked a lot about people in the industry that are emerging writers or emerging directors. And like, it is absolutely my job to do as much elevating and empowering as I can to the talent, the diverse talent that we have within our community, and intersectionality of our community, because we have plenty of stories to tell, and we should all be supporting each other as we tell them.
Yeah, definitely. What is next for Breaking Fast? What's next for the film? Any next projects you're planning on? What does the future hold?
We're very fortunate. The film festival circuit has been really, really kind to our film. We have a variety of film festivals lined up for the rest of this year. We have a special announcement that we'll be making in the coming weeks for plans for the film beyond the film festival circuit. I just finished a first draft of my next feature with the crew here. So provided the trajectory of
when do I get to read it? When do I get to read it?
Not draft one, Tinika.
Okay.
But provided our current global situation allows us, I'd love to be filming that sometime next year, if possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one little question also from me. Are you showing your film anywhere in the Middle East or North Africa?
We would be happy to show our film anywhere in the Middle East that would have us. Brothers played in Lebanon, and in Brothers, in 9-minute Brothers, there is a less than 1 second moment where one of the characters kisses his boyfriend on the cheek, and I was asked to blur that, and I thought it was important to do, and I wish that I had not. And if we were fortunate enough to play in the Middle East, I don't believe I would want to play a censored version of the film.
Yeah. We sadly have a long way to go with that, but
yeah. But certainly, if we were ever invited, I'd be more than happy to talk about it.
Well, hopefully.
If you know anyone, Grace, if you know anyone,
I'll be in touch. I have no more questions unless you have any questions for me. We can wrap up. And I don't think we have anyone to write that wants to write any questions in the comments. So,
great.
Any questions for me? Yes, no.
How's your day going?
It's going well. It's way too hot, and I come from Lebanon, so that's saying something.
Before we sign, I'll just make sure everyone knows about our film's website where they can stay tuned for news about our distribution and upcoming film screenings. www.breakingfastfilm.com. Great. And also a plug from me that this film, Breaking Fast, is going to play until the 30th. So please, if you have not seen it yet, take a look. It's worth your time.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wicked Queer. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Sean. Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much for having us.
Take care and be
Bye.
safe, everybody.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.